Hey you guys, it's Austin. I'm making this video today about the metaparable of the Matrix and the the ontological implications, because I can't figure out how to say anyways. So The Matrix is a 1999 film made by the Wachowskis, and it might be one of the most important films made in history then or ever since, and it has had incredibly powerful implications for what it's meant in the 21st century, because I think that the oversoul of the narrative, the epimetaphor it serves as, is instructive to the age of awakening on Earth, the age of transformation, in a spiritual sense, but also in a sociological sense, because it's tied into everything. So beyond just that level of the metaphor, and I think that being the highest level of it, and being the kind of overall gestalt, the overall message, I think that it is so four-dimensional in its scope and so almost subtle in the way it tells the story, and multi-layered in the way it tells its story, that it's been used and can be used for all kinds of different societal metaphors, going down the chain into more conventional ideas like postmodernism, society, trans allegory, and it's, even things like the red pill philosophy, and the implications that it's been used as a conspiratorial banner, in a way, or a way to kind of wrap ideas within it, because it's so resonant with something so cogent within the human psyche on a collective and individual level. But yeah, from that highest perspective, then, as I see it, we can see Neo, which of course is a anagram for one, being, a very much a prototypical protagonist, a perfect kind of vessel for all of us to place ourselves in that role, as seeing ourselves as him, as a fish out of water in this wild story. Neo has a feeling inside of himself for his entire life. He has a sense of that things are not right, that there's something wrong with the world, that there's something off about his life being a very kind of prototypical late 20th, early 21st century existence, where he works for a corporation. He's fairly socially isolated. He's, kind of a good symbol of what the matrix of humanity, of mankind, produces when you're in it, right? He's socially isolated. He's like somewhat not impoverished, but certainly not thriving in the conditions, but languishing on through a lens of survival, of having to do his job as a software engineer at a faceless, nameless corporation. But he has this sense inside of himself that that's not who he is. He has this sense inside of himself that there's something wrong, that he can't quite put a name to it or a voice to it, but he feels it. And Morpheus helps to verbalize that to him, and to give a voice to that feeling. And Morpheus and his cohort, right, can serve as a metaphor for light workers, for certain kinds of embodied spirits whose primary goal is to break the hold of that artificial, negatively focused energy hold that the Matrix does, right? Because the Matrix is upheld through fear, through control, not even necessarily through an individual, but through an entire energetic and ideological system that is ultimately not human, right? That is ultimately an embodied consciousness through the collectivized fear of mankind. And so Morpheus and his cohort see in Neo a person of tremendous potential, of someone with the ability and the key to unlocking the Matrix for all of humanity. But of course, Neo is, it's shown in the movie that Neo is not really special, that Neo is not actually any different than anyone else. He even goes to the Oracle, and the Oracle tells him, hey, you got the gift, but, being the one is like being in love. You just know it. You can't be told that you are. Of course, the Oracle very much knows what she's doing when she tells him this, because really, we are all the one, right? Everyone is the one because there is only one. Everything comes back to the monad in the showdown, right? Everything comes back to the showdown, and this is why no part or piece of God is any greater or less than any other piece, because it's all absolutely essential, because each piece holds the threads of the entire thing. So the separation of all the parts are true, and yet the unity of the parts is maybe perhaps more true. And so there's a powerful implication in that message of the fact that, the Savior is us. The Savior is each of us. The Savior cannot be anything other than that. We all are the one. We all are infinitely special. We all have an infinitely important role to play in the awakening of humanity. And we have to choose it. We have to decide, right? No one can bring us there. We can be guided, we can be helped, but ultimately it falls to us to make that choice, to be a leader, to be a teacher, to play our role, and to go down the path of awakening, despite all of the challenges, despite the fact that the entire world, the entire Matrix for man will not support you in your aims, because it's not built to. It's built to see that kind of thinking and that kind of consciousness as a threat, as a danger, as something that threatens the way that things have been, and rightfully so, because it is. And so, and that's, highlighted through, the idea of the Agent Smith being this faceless, nameless, inhuman consciousness, this artificial machine that basically is an energy that possesses each person within the Matrix. It is an ideological kind of proof stamp that every person subscribed into the Matrix has inside of them, and can be basically puppeted by, right? Through their kind of tacit belief and allowance of the system, they become a defender of the system on some level energetically, and that's a perfect metaphor for it, because Agent Smith can just appear through any person within the Matrix, because that idea of Agent Smith and the Matrix already is alive in that person. The person is still there underneath it with a soul, but that non-part of themselves is able to become operative and keep that person from escaping the matrix, but also can keep others from escaping the matrix. So it's a very cogent metaphor for the way these things function on a energetic consciousness level, collectively and individually.